This is Sheri from RJM Music. I'm here with Ron Menelli and Toby Bean. Toby Bean is the guitar tech extraordinaire for Billy Strings. We were talking before, and it was blowing my mind what you guys are doing.
I've never worked with anyone quite like Billy. He's very original. And so we have all these pre-war instruments, and then we have this super high-tech rig. So it's like I tell people it's like hooking up a Tesla to a horse and buggy and making sure that they work together every single day. It's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally see. I certainly had never seen anything like it before I went to work for him, but it's fun. It's very entertaining, and it's a lot of fly by the seat of your pants. It's a blast. When I first saw the rig, I actually was very lucky. I had Barry from Exactone there to kind of hold my hand through it the first time I saw it, because Barry did the build and he inherited that from Michael Bethencourt, who had started the build. First of all, we start with the guitar. The guitar is loaded with, it's got a K&K Helix sound hole pickup, as well as the K&K Pure Mini with the transducers that are glued to underneath the soundboard there, and a switch that can go in between either one of those. He also has Shure, the Beta 98H condenser mic in there that sits behind the bracing and actually touches the soundboard. Because a lot of these bluegrass guys, they really lean on those mics. Like, that's the sound that they like. The mic does not go through any of this stuff. The mic just goes to a whirlwind foot switch that he can turn on and off. I would say the majority of it he leans on for the sound, for the tone. Now the pickups, they're what fires through this. So it comes out of that SW4 and hits this JX44. From there, it goes through an SGI that goes downstage on the pedal board where it hits the Bix DI, and that's the DI sound. Now the DI has an effects loop on it. That effects loop is what goes back and hits the effects gizmos. So that's what all those pedals, the top three drawers of those pedals are in those top two effects gizmos. Goes back to that Bix, comes out of that Bix, hits a DI to turn around to an unbalanced signal, hits the ditto looper, goes out of the ditto looper, hits another DI to go back to a balanced signal, and that goes back to monitor world. That guitar, the pickup sound, the DI sound, is what goes through all those effects you see there. Out of that JX44, there's also another output that goes to a volume pedal. From the volume pedal, it goes back to that Kemper there. And that's what we use, that sound hole pickup. You'll see him switch that in the live show a lot. When he's doing that, you'll see him start to gas that volume pedal. And that's what turns that Kemper on and off. We have a Soldano profile in there, and that's like his heavy distorted guitar tone. And then like at front of house, they blend all of that together. So like the mic sound is always in there when he's got it on, and as well as the DI and the pickup sounds. So it's a lot, a lot going on there. More than I've ever seen on any sort of acoustic rig ever. And, I was talking to Sheri earlier, to get this far in his journey, and he's a young player, but he's met all these people along the way. You'll hear him tell, like in that rig rundown we did, he's picked up a lot of these things from players that he meets along the way and puts these ideas into play. And, like I said, Barry built that rig. And so there's a lot of those ideas in there. And since that day, we've tweaked some stuff. We've changed some pedals out. We've made some mods. We've moved some things around to get other things that he's hearing in his head. So it's a constant evolvement with that rig. So as you can see right there, you can see there's 16 downstage connections on this thing. The new build that we're doing now is going to have a little bit less. We're moving some things around and we're trying some new stuff out. And in theory, it seems like it's going to work. Of course, we put it all together. We might have to make some tweaks. But so here's the pedal board. And this is, like I was saying, the Bix DI is what's on the bottom left-hand side of that big pedal board. In the new rig, we're actually replacing that. We're going to use Shelford channels, the Rupert Neve Shelford channels. That's going to be his new DI sound. And we're going to have a different boost on there. Right now, we're just using the boost that's in the Bix DI. And you see the two Mission Engineering pedals. The gold one, the only thing that is used for is for the pitchfork to pitch up. And then, of course, the ditto looper is a huge part of his thing as well. And he's really particular to that looper. Like, we have some other ones that we've tried, but he really likes that one. That's the one that he's always used. He likes to have the control over the volume with his foot. So that will probably be in play in the new rig as well. To the left, the little small pedal board, the very far left volume pedal used to control the rate of a Leslie speaker that he had on stage. We've changed that Leslie speaker. The Leslie speaker is gone now. We use a Lex Strymon for a Leslie emulator now. So that pedal now controls two onstage acoustic amps that only get a dry acoustic sound. And we've got the Udo amps 75, and we got the Hughes and Kettner Era 1. We have both of those. So if he wants to ever hear like some onstage ambience from an acoustic, he can turn that on with that pedal. The inner volume pedal is what controls the Kemper volume. So he can shut it completely off, or he can kind of bring it in and out. And then the whirlwind pedal there on the left is what turns the mic on and off in the acoustic guitar. And the big red dot down there is what turns on the fan.
Wow.
Right now I'm trying to work on a pedal driven fan that I can turn the speeds up and down, but that's on the back burner for right now.
Wow, okay. This is a lot of gear. This is
That's
amazing.
Yeah, and that's all right there is all the work of Barry over at Exact Tone. It's a phenomenal rig. I've been very fortunate to come into a gig where because Barry is a kind of a genius. He speaks in a vernacular that's much higher than mine. So it's a pretty bulletproof rig. I've only been snake bit by it once, and that was my second show. It hasn't happened since, knock on wood. I've spent a lot of years in pop world. I spent many years with Justin Timberlake. I started with him in 2014. And when you're in that world, you're really spoiled. You have a lot of rehearsal time. Like you don't do a show without at least like a week of rehearsals. So, but with Billy in that jam scene, it's a constant tour, just constant. So my first show, I was doing a Mellencamp tour, and I left Mellencamp and went straight into Billy. And what I had to do is I flew to Nashville first, and I spent the day with Barry and with our production manager, Charlie, and our production coordinator, our assistant production manager, Steve York. And they kind of showed me the rig and walked me through everything. And I felt really, really comfortable with it that first day. There was a little thing though, we were having an issue that day. There was kind of a wonky cable coming out of that Bix, and we were aware of it. Barry replaced an end on it, and we zip tied the cables together. What happened was the cable wasn't quite seating right in that Bix, but it wasn't that big of an issue. And so I knew that was on my radar. So my first show with Billy was I fly into Red Rocks, and Red Rocks is a beautiful venue to see a show, to work a show. It's a very difficult show. It's very difficult. The load-in's difficult. The weather's difficult. It's a challenge. So we went in there, and it was, raining on us the entire time. And first show goes off without a hitch. So the second day I came in, and Billy comes to me, and he plays 13 through 56. That's his string gauge. And he said, "Hey, I've been thinking about going to a lighter gauge string, so I don't have to work so hard to like bend the strings and stuff." And I said, "Okay, yeah, I get that." And I go, "What are you thinking about?" And he goes, "Well, I have these strings, they're 12 and a half. So in my mind, I'm like, that's not that much difference, but that's what he wants to do. We'll do it." So I put a set of strings on for him. I take him the guitar. He plays it. He goes, "Oh, I like it." I said, "Great." And he goes, "Let's do all of the guitars." And I said, "Well, do you want to just do this one first and like make sure?" He goes, "No, fuck it. Let's go. Let's just do them all." So I changed all of his guitars to 12 and a half through 56. And our mate was 12 and a half through 54. I can't remember. So I changed all that. And this is night number 2, second show with him. Now, like I said, on that JX44, that the MIDI rig, all the MIDI stuff comes in and out of channel 1 on the JX44, and it's all patched in the back. The only other thing on the front that we use on that JX44 is he has a banjo that's hardwired, and when he uses it, it patches into channel 4 on that JX. So on Mellencamp that I just come off of, I had a fiddle player using a JX44, and we were only using the front of channel 1. That's all we were using. Getting ready for the show to start, Charlie, our production manager, is like, "Oh, we should check the banjo. He's going to play it tonight." I go, "Oh shit," because I got a lot of things flying at me right now. Day 2. And muscle memory, I just plugged the banjo into input number 1 instead of number 4. So when you do that, that front plate overtakes the back plate. So the banjo, I check it, I got it, it's all playing, everything I think is great. And here's where I made that mistake. And as a guitar tech, you should always, the last thing you ever check is the first instrument that they're going to play. And I just simply didn't go back to it. So I didn't catch that I was plugged into that wrong channel. So Billy comes out, band's coming out, sold out Red Rock show, live stream, all these things are going on. It's raining. And I hear in my ears, "Hey, Toby, I don't have any guitar," which is the last thing you ever want to hear as a guitar tech, and especially at night 2. So So I was like,
Right.
what? And he goes, I have no guitar. So thank God that he's a quick thinker. He goes, give me the one mic. So we have this old bluegrass mic that they'll play around. It's called a one mic. So they set the one mic out and the band went out and they started the show around the one mic to buy me some time to figure out what was going on. Now, immediately I thought it was that problem that we had when I first had the rig in the studio. I was like, oh, it's got to be that cable. So I'm swapping out DIs, I'm swapping out SGIs, and then Charlie, our production manager, just simply turned around and saw that cable and just unplugged that cable and it fired back on. And I was like, mind blown. The whole time I'm just thinking of like 10,200, 10,200. That's how many people were in Red Rocks. And I'm just like freaking out. I'm the only person, I'm like, ah. So when that thing fired back on, it was like all this relief. So they're like, oh, great, fantastic. And Billy comes out, he goes, thank God I got the best crew ever. Charlie saved the day. And so I'm just sitting there like, oh, shit. And, I'm looking at management. I'm like, oh, my God, what's going to happen? So second part of that story is the band starts firing off and it's killer, right? And all of a sudden the second song happens and I don't see Billy. I'm like, where's he at? And I'm like looking for him. And then he's standing next to me and he goes, hey, I don't like these strings. Hand me the guitar that we didn't do. And I'm like, you told me to do them all. He goes, well, the next song's like 10 minutes long. Is that enough time? Can you give me another guitar? I go, yeah.
Oh,
So he goes running back out there and I'm like, after just, narrowly evading this other thing, I'm like, oh, and I got to change all these strings back. In my guitar world, I always have a rug. And the reason that I always have a rug is because we drop things. And when you drop things, they don't bounce if you have a rug. If you drop your in-ears, they won't break. If you drop a bridge pin, it stays there. So as I'm trying to fire these strings off, I launch a bridge pin of the acoustic and it bounces and I don't know where it's at because it was my night number 2. I didn't have all my stuff yet. So I'm missing a bridge pin. Luckily, my guy Steve York had the other bridge pin set for me. I'm like, swapped all the strings out, got them back up and running. Show goes off. People are going nuts. During loadout, I go backstage and I was so tired. And I hear Billy down the hallway. He's like, hey, man, hell of a second show, huh? I'm just like, oh, shit. I still have a job. Am I good? Are we cool? So that was the only time, knock on wood, that I've been snake bit by that. And it's kind of an important lesson as being a guitar tech because that's, guys and girls that have been in the game for a long time, you build up, like that's kind of what you get when you're getting a veteran guitar tech is somebody who has had some mistakes or whatever along the way and you've learned from that, because that's kind of the name of the game as far as me is always what's the most bulletproof rig I can build. And if that's going to fail, what's my parachute? What's my way out? What's my show saver? Because, that's the thing. People are paying money to come see these artists and, you can't, like, that's just the kiss of death. You can't have that. So that was my intro to this rig. And like I said, luckily nothing else has ever happened. And I've got, I'm very comfortable with the rig now after, several months. It's like, I know all these things that if this were to happen, this is what I'm going to do. If this is going to happen, this is what I'm going to do. And luckily when we built the new rig, we'll have 2 rigs on site most of the time to where if something were to happen, I have this other rig. Whereas right now my backup is just a smaller version, like a pedal board that Billy built before this last rig was built. So 4 different pedal drawers. The top right, top left, and the bottom left, those are all what is on the acoustic side of the rig. So all of those pedals right there you see are what he uses on the acoustic side. So like the Nemesis delay down there, that's a big one for him. Like that's one of his main ones. The Digitech Polaire, which they don't make anymore, he loves that. The Dim C, he's partial to. The Freeze is another big one. Trying to think of what else. The Strymon obviously is a big one. The Raster, that Red Panda Raster, we don't really use any. I think we actually even took that one out. We've replaced it with something else. The Pitchfork is a big one. The H9 is not used too much anymore. The synth pedals used a lot. And now the bottom right pedals you see there in that mini effects gizmo, that's what is attached to the Kemper. So that's like on his distorted guitar sound. Those are the ones that he'll lean on there. Some of the updates we've had to these, I had put that new Chase Bliss Lossy in there, which kind of simulates either like old 90s dial-up tones or like a warbly old compressed MP3, like Winamp player kind of tone. It's really kind of cool. And it also has a freeze effect on it, but we're just kind of digging into that one. That synth pedal and that envelope filter as well. He'll use that along with the Kemper to kind of get this, like, it kind of sounds like a warbly frog sound, but it's really cool. Almost like Peter Frampton voice box sound, kind of. It's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. I mean, he does stuff that I could never recreate with some of that stuff there.
Oh, wow, wild. How much does he know about the gear?
He knows a lot. Like I always people ask about that because they saw the original or the last rig rundown where he was saying, "Oh, I don't know, like Toby can figure it out or he'll know whatever." He knows way more about it. I mean, he's pretty partial because a lot of times I'll have things set to where I think that they're perfect, and I'll see him back there in the drawers like tweaking some things. He's one of those people that's always, I think, gonna know his sound and his guitar and the way everything feels better than anybody else that's gonna work there. He's micro observant to things. He knows he can hear things. He can hear things sometimes when it's like it doesn't sound right in my ears or whatever. And like I said, his pedal board that he had before this rig was built, like he built it. And he's told me before, he goes, that pedal board never fails.
So he's using the GT now. You were telling me some interesting things of how he's using this GT.
He's a bluegrass player, he's a flat picker, but he's so much more than that. And so he'll go into these jams and these way he layers these tones and everything and using the looper. So he'll say like, I'm a painter and that's my palette, right? So everything is in instant access function, right? Like he likes to turn things on and off and have it there. There's no scene set up. It's nothing like that because also too, we don't have a set list that's the same. You know, every night is different. And I don't call it a set list. I call it a suggestion list because sometimes it's 2 songs in and it's already calling new songs off. So the way that he uses that, he turns these things on and off. Sometimes he'll try something new here and there. He's got it set up because he is a bluegrass player. It's like one minute you're in outer space, all these things are on, all these loops are going, and all this stuff's happening. And then, they have that kill switch that's programmed on that GT to where he can just hit that kill switch and we're back to Bill Monroe or Doc Watson. It's back to just that. So it's wild because you'll be in these songs that start out like a standard bluegrass song, and then you're out in Mars, and then with a hit of a switch, the band's right back to bluegrass, to Chuck Boom, and it's awesome. It's killer. It's pretty inspiring. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I can say that I've never really worked with anybody that is as interesting to watch and work with as Billy. It's really cool. There's really no rules and no limits here. You got to try things that don't make sense because a lot of times you're just shooting stuff out and seeing what happens, and sometimes there's some happy mistakes there.
I had certainly heard of Billy, but just knew like, okay, he's a really well respected bluegrass player. Then when I see the pictures of the rig coming in, I'm like, wow, this looks like this is this big crazy rack. How did you guys arrive here? Like this is such an immensely complex setup and specialized to what he's doing.
On that rig rundown, there was a part of it where he talked about how, and I don't want to misquote him, where he's found ideas from other people, like Trey from Fish, like he's like, like the whale sounds or the whale calls and the use of the looper. He's just met all these people along the way and he's just seen things that he likes and I'm going to try that, or I want to try this. Primus, another big influence for him. So he just picked these things up along the way, and like I said, there's no rules in his playing. He's raised on bluegrass, but now it's all these other things that have come in to influence him and push him in these directions. So
What got him into the GT, and how does he like the GT? How has that changed something for him?
that's probably a Barry question, either Barry or Michael. I don't know who pitched the GT to him first, but I mean, he likes it because I know that we've talked about it. There's a lot less tap dancing involved. Like all of these things are now centrally located for him in just the very, very center of his world,
And you said that you're gonna switch it in the future, right? So you're gonna have
Yeah.
I
So
think you mentioned that you wanted, like, a slave and a master so that you could do some stuff in case he's not up there.
yeah, so he's been asking for that like the last few months. He's like, I would like you to have one over there because right now the rig lives on stage, which that's kind of I haven't had that in a while. Usually the rig lives with the tech off stage, but they use those rigs to kind of fill up the stage because they're a bluegrass band. There's no drummer, there's no back line, so we have those racks out there to kind of fill that stage up. But he has mentioned that, like, because there's some times where he's like, oh, I can't get back there in time, like you could hit it. But this new rig that we're building, it's built to stay off stage. So I will either probably just use the remote effects gizmos, just the buttons on there myself, or I'll have a remote foot control so that I can see what's on and off. But see, here's the challenging thing. Like I said, he says that, but I don't know if he's going to play it the same every night, because sometimes he just does it different, and that's just how it is. So, but that's the goal that we're headed to. And also too, in the new rack, we're going to get away from the Kemper. The Kemper is going to be a backup for the electric guitar sound or the distorted sound. And we're moving to a Two-Rock TS1 amp that they built for him in use with an aux box. So we won't actually have a cabinet, but we'll still have the speaker sim, but we'll be using an actual tube head instead of the Kemper.
Seems like you guys are always kind of like planning the next move.
That's the funnest part about it, as a guitar tech. Like, it can get real boring, like when you're doing the same thing over and over again. But there's, like I said, there's nothing boring here. It's never the same. It's literally never the same, And I don't want to speak out of turn, but like, I mean, there's songs, like I've been here for 7 months now. Sometimes there's songs and I'm like, I haven't heard this one yet. And somebody said, oh, he's probably got like 900 songs that he chooses from or what we're going to play. It's different every single night. So it's wild.
So are these songs he writes, or I mean, is he really that prolific? Or?
There's three or four albums of his. I think a lot of these bluegrass guys, they know all of these standards, and there's just, I mean, you talk with some of these guys have been playing since they were 4 and 5, 6 years old, and going to picking parties and, bluegrass jam sessions and stuff, all these years. So they've learned all these standards, and a lot of it, are guys that really know the theory, or they know what key, like we're going to play this song and it's going to be in this key. Oh yeah, I know that song. Or they know those arrangements. I can speak for everyone in the band. It's like they're all really, really extremely talented musicians. And that's the only rehearsal I've ever seen them do is they have instruments that come in a road case that's backstage, and they rehearse every day before the show backstage. They'll do like a 30-minute to 1 hour run through of the set of what think they're going to do. And they'll go through it and they'll make sure that they kind of got it and the key changes and who's starting what or whatever. But then, like I said, half the time they come on stage and they're like, oh, let's try this one instead.
I'd been doing some, research before this. I was just amazed at all the stuff he's been doing. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, traditional sounding bluegrass stuff, but then it's like, okay, well, here he's doing a Pink Floyd cover, and here he's playing with Tool, and here he's playing with Santana, and here he's playing with Willie Nelson. And, and it's just, it's pretty darn amazing, the range of what's going on there. And just seems pretty fearless about just kind of going in any direction.
You used the word that I've said before. It's fearless, is because I mean it's totally. When we did the Tool thing, he loves Tool, and so Danny, the drummer, is a fan. He's come out to see the band play a few times. He came to see us in LA, and then he came to Salt Lake. And originally we were just going to do the Salt Lake show, and then we were going to Kansas City. Well, we had 2 days off. So Danny invited him. He's like, why don't you come play with us tomorrow night? Okay, well, I got to stay too. I got to go with you, And it's like, yeah, let's figure it out. What are we going to do? I had a Bowman overdrive pedal on me, and I had a Earthquaker device hoof reaper. And I threw them together on a little board that I originally had just a DI on, and like built this little tiny board. The next morning I went to Guitar Center. I picked up a little practice amp and just dialed in what I thought was a close enough tone. We happened to have a Strat on the road with us at the time. And I dialed in what I thought would be close just so I wouldn't waste their time. I showed up to go sound check the next day. And, when I got there, they were checking guitars and stuff. And I thought the first thing I need to get Billy on the stage, because I don't know if he's ever been on a stage this loud before. Because Adam plays 3 412s with like Diesels and Bogners. I mean, it's extreme. It's like shock and awe campaign up there. And they gave Billy a little 112 Mesa. So I was like, you got to come up. I need you to come up here, even with your in-ears in. You need to feel the force of this. Like, this is like nothing I don't think you've ever seen. And he was unfazed by it. He just came up, was like, oh, he goes, man, look at all that. That's really cool. I get this little Paquito, But then when the show happened and he went out there and did that, I mean, there's like, 20,000 people sold out Salt Lake Arena. Like, it was insane. And he just went out there and it was like as cool as a cucumber and was fearless and just, he crushed it. I don't know if you've seen the footage of it, but it was like, I mean, I've seen a lot of shit. I'm an older guy and I had goosebumps. I was like, God, he just like totally took that in a really cool direction. It was very, very cool, and then 2 nights later doing bluegrass again. He's just kind of all over the place.
Cool.
Oh, I have a question. Let me show
Yeah.
it. Jim, I know who this is. Esric Daddy. What's Toby's musical background? Seems like he's got a slew of instruments in his office.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on. My musical background. So how I got into all of this, like, well, originally I asked for a drum set when I was a little kid, and my parents got me a guitar instead because they thought it wouldn't be as loud until I figured out how to plug it into my stereo and I could turn it all the way up to get it to distort. So that's where I started. I always wanted to be a drummer, but I got into guitar and I learned how to play guitar. And then in the 90s, my best friend at the time, Zach, who's in Rise Against now. Originally, he was in this band Hagfish in the 90s, and that was my first guitar tech job. Was I went out guitar teching for them in the 90s. I had no idea what I was doing. I had a little fishing tackle box as my toolbox, and I just kind of like learned like watching other people and like picking things up here and there. But a lot of guys and girls out there that tech have kind of a background of, a lot of us can tech a few different things, like guitars. I could do drums. I've done keys. There's a lot of techs out there that are really good at teching multiple things. That's why we always say like we're a backline tech is rather than just a guitar tech. So that's my background. And I've also played too. I was in a band that did pretty okay for a handful of years. So I've kind of done both sides of it. I've always preferred being behind the scenes though. That's where I think I thrive.
So, Ron, I know you've got to have tons more questions.
Yeah, I guess. Well, let's see how we get. We'll get really geeky here. So so how are you working with the looper with regard to having MIDI and all that stuff going on?
Oh, like his Ditto looper?
Is it okay? Yeah, I wasn't sure. I knew you had a looper, but I wasn't. I didn't remember
Yeah.
what kind. And is that
So
is that
yeah,
up
he has.
front on the board?
It's the very last thing on his board. It's a very well. There's one more DI that converts it back to a balance signal, and that he likes having that there because he likes having it at the end, so he can put all that stuff into it. And that's where it will stay. And like I said, there was some talk. Like Barry had some other ideas before I came along at putting it into the so we could control it with MIDI. And he doesn't want to do that. He really likes. He's very comfortable with that Ditto looper, and like I said, the access to the volume control and all that stuff. So that's going to stay there. That's going to stay just like how it is, where it'll just be the last thing in his chain that he can control.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering because yeah, MIDI and looper control are kind of a fiddly thing, so it's probably just as well you got that up in front and just not have to
Yeah,
mess with it.
yeah,
Just
and that was the thing. Like when I met Barry when he walked me through the rig the first time, that was the first questions I had. Was I was pointing at certain things on the board, saying like, how do I get out of jail here? And how do I get out of jail here? And he goes, well, if that goes down, you're dead. If that goes down, you're dead. And then so the looper, he goes, if that goes down, you're dead. You should probably get a shunt for that. So that was the first thing I did when I went, because I had to go finish those Mellencamp dates. I went and bought just a shunt, a female to female TS. So if that looper were to crap out on me, I could at least control signal, because that would kill the whole
around.
chain. And that had happened before. That Ditto had crashed on him before, and it wouldn't shut off. So it was a problem, and there was no parachute for it. So first thing I did was buy that, and then I just contacted TC Electronics and I said, hey, I work for Billy, and he uses this, and it's a big part of it. He loves it. This is his thing. And they sent me a box of them, and they sent me some other ones or whatever, but he just wanted that one. So now, if you looked on, well, I think that was an old picture of that pedal board. But
Yeah,
now there, that's actually Velcroed on up there with the volume and everything. It's just ready to go. So if it were to fail again, right there, I can just swap it right out. Yeah, see, it's before I had it on there, but up there on that
Okay.
right junction box, I have a spare Ditto now that sits there. So I could, if I had to go out there and do it, it would be very quick and whatever. But yeah, a big part of the show is that looper right there. tiny little pedal.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're cool. I mean, it's just a little tiny simple thing that does the job.
Mhm.
So, so tell me more about this two rock that you guys have coming. It's like it's kind of a change. If you were using a Soldano model on the Kemper, that's a kind of a departure in sound.
It's a TS1 that Eli, the owner of Two Rock, he actually built for Billy, and Eli has been amazing. And Corey, Eli's friend, I'm not gonna Corey, if you see this, I'm sorry, I don't want to mess up your last name. Amazing guitar player, does a lot of work with Two Rock as well. So Eli built this TS1 for Billy, and it's the one with the cascading gain. And he kind of sold it on me because he had just built one for Butch Walker, who I respect a lot. And he said that Butch loved it. It was his favorite amp he's ever had. So we brought that in. That thing can get nasty though. It's that cascading gain. So when you crank everything up until that last plate, and then if you disengage the tone stack, it's a very excitable, very nasty amp. So, but it's got more character than the Soldano profile in the Kemper to me.
Hmm.
So like I said, that is definitely like, I mentioned it to Billy because the other thing too is, like I said, the Kemper is a fantastic tool, and I'm not trying to take anything away from it. The Kemper is awesome if you've got to have like several amps to choose from and several different effects or whatever. That's a fantastic tool because it's all right there in a small box. We're only really using one distortion sound for that, our application. So it's a lot of overkill, but it gets the job done. So when you have a player like Billy, I said, I think it would be really cool to have a very unique amp. Like you should have to me, I think you should have an amp. You should have something that has some character to it. And so that's where we started looking at all that. And one of the guys that worked at Two Rock had come to see us in Sacramento about the time we were having this discussion. And he put me in touch with Eli, and me and Eli talked about it. And he built the amp. We used it at Halloween on a lot of the electric stuff, and Billy really liked it. And so that's why we kind of started going in that direction with that. And then I showed him the aux box and showed him all the different speaker sims. And Corey, that works with Eli over there, or works alongside Eli with Two Rock, he does a lot of the testing on the aux box. So that's kind of how we started going down that route. And I don't know, I'm pretty excited about it. My friend Andy Meyer, that does front of house for Shinedown, who used to do Timberlake with us, he's really partial to that aux box. A lot of what you hear when you go see Shinedown live is that aux box. That's that speaker sim in that. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked to try that out.
I've heard a lot about the Oxbox. I don't have one myself, but it definitely seems like a really helpful tool and all that, and kind of a nice integrated solution for you going cabless. Yeah, seems really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, because that's a thing for us too, right? Because it's all acoustic instruments. This thing, everything's
Mhm.
acoustic, stand up bass, mandolin. So I can't have speakers on stage. I have those two acoustic amps on stage right now, and that can be challenging. So we can't have loud stage sound because it would crush our show. So I don't know. 2023, I say this a lot, is a really exciting time to be doing some of this stuff, like where we're at now versus where we were at just 10 or 15 years ago. Like what we can do is pretty exciting stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked to see it. The other thing with you going to this Two Rock and stuff like that is, as a guitar tech, like I'll be the first to say, like I don't know, I don't have answers for everything, and I love being surrounded with people like yourself that I can call or email, like, hey, I'm trying to do this. Do you have an answer for me? Yes, try this, 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 and this. Or, I can call Barry, or I can call Eli at Two Rock. Like, hey, the effects loop is clipping in this aux box, because it's got this buffered thing, and he can walk me through it. Like, I love having access to all these people and learning new ways to do things. I'm really trying to not be the curmudgeon in the corner to always say I have the answer. I like to be the first person to say I don't know. So
Very cool. Well, likewise, I love working with bands that kind of push the envelope, a lot. And it's like in the past, it's been like Muse and Nine Inch Nails and stuff, where they've actually directly influenced the design of the product, saying, it'd be really cool if it did this. And so keep that
Yeah.
in mind, because I enjoy a challenge, maybe perhaps too much, but
Good. I'll give Billy your phone number then, because
there you go. Hey, I'm game. It's what he's doing is so interesting that yeah, I would probably wade into something that would be, yeah, that would probably, get me into a whole mess, but I have fun doing it though.
So I'm gonna
yeah.
put him in the room of rock where that's where he is right now, is in the room of rock, and, like, I always threaten to, you know, shut the door and throw the pizzas under the door, and Ron would be in heaven, because if he could just design all day and, like, get into a new
Yeah,
project, he's
that's
in his happy
the
place.
fun part of all this too, is yeah, just kind of making this stuff happen. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's it's
And
fun to work with you guys already, and I think we could
it's fun.
do some interesting stuff.
It's fun
Yeah.
because I feel like we get to be part of the creative, or we're not, we don't go get out there and play music, but we're part of the flow, like the creativity and the ease and flow. And if we can make it easier for somebody to play and have more fun, then we're doing our job.
For
Sure.
100%. And it's like you mentioned that, like with Muse and Nine Inch Nails and stuff. That's another thing too, is that as a guitar tech, like I'm constantly watching. I know a lot of these techs, like I've done this on my network is luckily is fairly large, and I have the access to call some of these techs, like Steve Ryan or Rim Massengill or Cody Orell, Ben Jacobs, Ian. I'm shouting out all my tech friends right now, to call them and like, hey, have you done this, or have you tried this? And and that's kind of fun too, seeing what other people are doing out there and how they're using the gear, how they're using like the gizmos, or how you're routing things. That's always fun too, because I believe there's always a better way than what I'm doing, and so I love doing that. I like going out and seeing people's rigs and seeing new things or new ways to try things. That's fun. That's part of the enjoyment for the job for me, for sure.
Yeah, definitely more fun to be able to experiment than to just kind of stay status quo all the time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So you almost had a job, you were telling me you almost took, I guess, an assistant job to Darren, with Aerosmith with Joe Perry?
Well, so I got hit up. It was last year. I was just finishing a tour with Dispatch, and a friend of mine who I used to work with hit me up and said, "Hey, are you interested in an assistant guitar tech job with Aerosmith?" And I was like, "Assistant guitar tech? What is that? I want to do that. Like, what is that?" So I timing wasn't right or something, because there was a few things happening at the time, and I ended up at the time I couldn't do it. Of course, recently that assistant was a friend of mine, Fozzy, a guitar tech that had been doing Jeff Beck and Johnny Depp and some of that stuff. And Fozzy did it and said it was great. It was the best thing ever, And I don't know exactly where the workload was, but that's the thing. There's two guitar techs there, and I was like,
Well,
man,
Huh.
I remember on Darren's live stream, and he was talking about, I just can't get over what I mean, 5, was it 5 GTs they had on stage plus the
Yeah,
slave, or
yeah,
was it
5.
4 plus the slave? Just
Oh, it was, well,
insane.
they were all slaves of each other. So it's like, it's like, well, you need one that's like, that you need one over here, and you need one like when he goes way out there into the crowd, and you need one for the tech. And I don't even know what it all was, but yeah, they had a very elaborate setup too. So I could see they might need a second person just to help deal with it all, because it's pretty intense.
yeah. I mean, that was the only other time I'd ever heard of two techs was Pete Townsend. He had an amp tech and a guitar tech, and I'd heard that because he had like broke a guitar, and the guy replaced the guitar, and then he turned on and he broke an amp, and then the guy was fixing the amp and he broke another guitar. So then they're like, we just need two guys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean,
it,
Pete Townsend is pretty famously hard on his gear, or at least he used to be.
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I was like, man, I'd love that. What is that? Just changing guitar strings all day? Okay, I'll do that. But yeah, I might get kind of bored. But Fozzy, I know my friend Fozzy did. He said he loved it. He loved working with him, and I mean, Joe's a legend, So
Oh yeah,
Have we
yeah.
worked
So
with Ozzy, Ron? I don't know if I know
it
him.
sounds familiar. I'm not
David
sure.
Foss, David Fossbender, that's his real name, but he goes by Fozzy.
Okay, it
He did
sounds.
Offspring for a really long time. He did Creed back in the day, and like
We've
he's with
probably talked to him at one point or another. We've talked to an awful lot of techs in the past years, so
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. He's not like our definitely not on our list of like most regulars that we like talk to all the time, but it sounds familiar. Unless there's another guy going by Fozzie too. We probably
Yeah.
talked to him at some point.
I love
Yeah.
all the tech names. Everybody seems to have a nickname. Do you have one?
I mean, maybe I have one that I don't know about, but probably the grumpy guy or something. I don't know. But no,
I don't know. You
I
don't seem
don't.
that grumpy.
Yeah, well, I can be. I got my game face on right now, but no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't think I have one. Maybe. So, but yeah, there's a lot of them, and there's some of them that like I've learned that I can't. There's some that I've learned that I can't say so freely because it's quite offensive. So I just try to call them by their first name now. Fozzie's pretty easy. That we can do that one. That's a good
That
one
one's
for me.
yeah. That's,
So
that's funny.
yeah.
Let's see. So, have you used were you using any of the RJM gear in any of your previous gigs?
So we had. Trying to think. I feel like we had some stuff. I did Deftones very shortly, very quickly, and I feel like there was some stuff there right before I went to Timberlake. The Timberlake stuff we had really the only MIDI switching stuff we had in Timberlake was over in Key World, and I had two fantastic techs on that. They were doing Ben Jacobs that was doing keys on that. He's actually doing guitars for Post Malone now, and Cody Orell who was doing Justin stuff. Those two guys were fantastic MIDI guys. And that was really kind of like I was like trying to like learn a lot of that stuff back then because my stuff right then was very basic as far as our guitar players. We just had two giant pedal boards and you know amp cab setup, and that was it for that. So the majority of my RGM stuff has been when I've come to Billy. I did. Oh, you know what? I think Naked and Famous. I think we had some RGM stuff on that. That's been several years now since I was there. So but this has definitely been the most I've dealt with it right here, and I'm sold for life.
Cool. So obviously it's going reasonably well because I'm actually getting. I'll give you credit for being below average in tech support requests.
Oh
It's like I get usually guys first get into this. Even the best techs, and they're like, and just like a bunch of questions about about setup
Well,
and
you
how do I
mentioned that
program this?
you mentioned you watched all the videos, huh? The
so yeah, like because when I got the gig, I I was still doing Mellencamp, and I had a little bit of time to prepare. And what you know, if going into if you're a guitar tech today, it's way easier than yesteryears, right? Because there's all of this information out, right? Your fingertips, right? So to prepare for it, like I was constantly listening to all of Billy's records. I was listening to live recordings, and I was going through as much of the rig stuff as I could find, and listening to, and watching all the videos that you guys had on your website. And even if I didn't have time to really sit down and concentrate on it, I would just leave it on and listen to like I was changing strings on a guitar, and I would be listening to your videos, your tutorials, the mastering the masterminds and stuff. And I was just immersing myself in it so that the minute I was around the gear and had it, even if it was something like say I hadn't been able to pay 100% attention to, I heard like the vernacular of it. I knew enough to kind of like figure it out and like move around with it. And then like Barry had told me, my friend Steve Ryan, who works on RGM stuff all the time, told me, and then you've told me as well, is like, try this, and then if that's not doing what you need it to do, then just keep playing with it and until you learn it, right? And so that's kind of how I got into it. But yeah, I just watched every single piece of footage I could find on any of the RJM stuff to really kind of like immerse myself in it, and that was extremely helpful. And then the user manuals too. I tell people that all the time. Like, if you got a new piece of gear, a lot of people's first reaction is just to grab something and go for it. But like I read the manuals. I read through the manuals, and just so at least if there's something happening, I can kind of like, oh wait, I think I read this, and I can go back and kind of figure it out. So
You're a rare breed, someone who actually reads the manual. Good job.
You know why? Because I've screwed up so many times in the past of not doing that. You know, that came out of getting snake bit so many times that you have to
Yeah.
do that. You know, like, oh, I'm just going to flip this switch, and you flip that switch and it's something terrible. You know, or you know, like, you know, I took a few years off from touring, and I was teaching at a school here in California. I was teaching kids how to do this kind of stuff, like, you know, some audio stuff, some backline stuff, some lighting stuff, or whatever, you know, and I would tell them, like, read the manual, know all this stuff, you know, before you fry your iPhone turning phantom power onto it. You know, like, so
Yeah.
you have to read stuff now. So, but
Yeah.
that's where that has come from, just making mistakes numerous times.
Two of our Unstrung Hero guitar techs have actually dislocated their shoulder while on the job, and had people holding up their arm while they were trying to finish pressing all the buttons and telling people where to go. So I assume that you haven't had anything like that happen.
No, I have not. I had, I'm trying to think. I mean, I've luckily never, knock on wood, I've never really been injured on a gig. Oh, no, I take that back. I was with me and Steve Ryan, of all people. So Steve was our MIDI tech. We were doing Naked and Famous, and we were in the Philippines. And it was me and Steve Ryan and Charlie Izzo, who does front of house for Blink 182 now. And we were down in the Philippines, and I wish I could pull up pictures of this gear that we had. And the Naked and Famous, pretty techie band, all right? Like, everything was driven from the key world. All the MIDI changes came from the programming back there. It was a lot going on. But some of the gear that the locals had provided, there was a step down transformer. It was a transformer that had been ripped out of the back of an amplifier and had cables hanging out of it. It was the craziest looking stuff I'd ever seen. And I was sitting there, and we were doing changeover, and I had turned the guitar player, Tom, he played fractals that went straight into a Vox amp on clean, 12 o'clock, all the way across. And I turned it on, and it was going, I'm like, oh, what is that? And I went over and I went to grab the cable to unseat the cable to see if the sound would go away, to see if it was the amp just itself, or if it was something, if it was some sort of ground loop. When I grabbed that cable and tried to pull it out, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I wasn't standing by the amp anymore. I was about
Oh,
5 feet from it, and
oh no.
I could smell ozone.
Oh,
Oh
And
wow.
Steve came running over to me and goes, "Are you okay? Oh my God, what happened?" And I go, "What happened?" He goes, "Dude, you just got shocked." He's like, "Saw a blue spark."
Oh
And
man.
I was like, and I looked on the plate of that Vox, and there was a hole blown in it. So it had arced. And like,
Oh
I felt
wow.
weird, my chest felt weird, and they were trying to take me to the hospital, and I wouldn't go with them. I was like, I don't want to go. And Charlie, our front of house guy, he had leaned against a rail around the same time, and he got shot too. And apparently somebody had stolen like the grounding rod from the generator. I don't know what happened. That's kind of above my IQ, but it was pretty gnarly. And like, there was it was either Bon Iver or Death Cab for Cutie. One of those bands was over there, and like their crew were like, "Dude, are you okay? That looked like lightning shot out and hit you."
Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't hurt myself worse than that, but it was
Yeah.
pretty nasty.
It's good that you're still standing and still with us on that one. That's yeah. I guess we're going to need to like keep a tally or something of like the tech injuries for this series. So you're the first for like severe electrical shock.
you know,
Surprisingly.
we're gonna have some really great like YouTube shorts of like all these horror stories of the guitar techs like
Yeah.
getting severely injured but staying on the job. No, I can't leave. I'm in the middle
This
of
is this
whatever.
is a portrait of dedication right there.
You know, there's a lot of talk about kind of that stuff right now too. I've seen like the picture of the guy mixing monitors, and they're holding the IV next to him, and I was like, sometimes I'm kind of like, come on, man, you got go to the hospital, like don't,
Yeah.
you know, But there's something about it, like the in our brains that like whatever it takes to get the show done.
Yeah.
That's the only other thing I was gonna think I could think of, like a total like oh shit moment was I was with Jake Shears, the singer of Scissor Sisters. He had a solo thing, and we were in England, and it was a promo tour, and he had, the drummer, like we were playing this club, it was like packed, it was an underplay for him. And the second song, I was the only backline tech on it. The second song, the kick drum, or the drummer looks at me and he's pointing down at his kick drum, and I look and his mallet had gone all the way through the kick head. And it was like second song in, and I'm like, oh no, I don't have another kick drum. Like, you change a kick drum head, like I can't, it's a long time. So Jake just said, I guess we're just going to just do an acoustic show. And I don't know how I thought of it, but I looked up and I saw one of those like exit signs, and I went over and I started shaking it, and I pulled the plexi out of it, and I took it over there and I gaff taped it over the hole of the kick drum, and I spun the mallet around, and I called on the radio, the front of house guy, said, you're gonna have to EQ the shit out of it, but it'll work. And it worked.
Wow.
Okay.
I
Hey,
totally winged it.
that's
And I mean, it sounded like a Pantera kick drum, for like a pop act, but I mean, shit, it worked. It was a show saver, so.
hey,
Okay, now
yeah,
that's
that's
cool.
really good. I like
Th-
that.
That's like a MacGyver moment,
It-
kind of there.
yeah. I don't know how I thought of it. I just happened to like, shit, we'll try it, so.
Oh, I
Yep.
love that. I guess we should take a question from our
Yeah,
audience. Mitchell
yeah,
sent
we
it to you
got
here.
a few, yeah, a few
Let's see what he
questions
Okay.
here.
says. Okay, so what is sent to the front of house, and what is it sent from? Gizmo, pedal.
Okay. So everything routes through the gizmo, comes out of the gizmo, goes back to the SGI, then goes back to, oh no, that's when it comes back and when it hits that Bix DI, that Bix DI then hits that diddle looper, second DI to turn it back to balance. That goes to monitor world first. All of our gain stages are set over there. Charlie, our fearless production manager and monitor engineer, he sets all the gain stages, and then that is sent to front of house. So everything comes from after it passes through the gizmo and back to the JX44 and through the Bix DI and all that stuff, then it goes to monitor world. So that's where, hope that answers your question. Front of house channels. That is a question for Andy Lyle, our front of house guy. I don't know. It's a lot for a bluegrass band, but I'm not sure how many inputs there are.
All right, and then another question here.
I do. I solder my own cables. I can tell everyone right now. I used to tell my high school kids when I was teaching that is such a great skill to have. I learned how to solder in high school, and I was always the person that could. I actually learned from a friend of mine, Jeremy Wade, who went on to work on the iPhone design team. He went to high school with me. He taught me how to
Wow.
solder, and he was making like lasers and listening devices and stuff in high school. And like, he showed me how to hotwire the driver's ed car and stuff. So, but what a great skill to solder your own cables. There was a hot moment there when like George L and all those cables came out, those solderless cables. I'm sure they're great and they're fantastic and they're convenient. Like I know in my shop, sometimes I'll use it when I'm testing stuff. Really don't like that on touring though, because we pack this stuff up and we put it in semi trucks and airplanes and travel 300 and 400 miles every night, and all that stuff can rattle loose. So yeah, I solder all my own cables. Fantastic skill to have for anybody out
Yeah,
there doing their own work.
totally agree. If you're into your gear, you really should learn that because it's useful for, repairs. It's useful for making cables, and just it's just not that difficult to pick up, and super useful.
And
Right.
I also, if you're going to solder your own cables, get a solder vent. For
Oh,
many years, I wish I had always had this. I've just started using it in the last like 6 months because I got tired of inhaling the fumes. So get
Oh
a vent.
yeah.
Get a
yeah.
vent.
Yeah, here in
Nice
Please.
the office, we've got some
flux
really big
vapors.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
We've got all sorts of filters now. So yeah, it does get a little tiresome inhaling fumes.
All right. So is guitar stereo? How many burn marks on the fingers? Not good at it.
No,
Yes.
I have no burn marks on fingers, and no, it's not stereo.
So we usually keep the show to about an hour, and we're kind of at that mark. Any other funny stories, Spinal Tap that came up, or
Oh God, I wish. I mean, there's gotta be so many, and of course,
But
I'm just totally blank. I'm telling you, if any of my people on my crew were to hear me right now, they'd be like, "Oh, it's story time. He doesn't have any stories to tell," because I'm constantly telling stories. I love telling stories. I love the ones that are acceptable, of course. But yeah, I don't really have any. I can't think of. I'm just drawing a blank. Oh,
Well,
it's
we
gonna
could
drive me
always
crazy.
invite you back and just have some story time because, I mean, some of
story
these
time
tech
with Toby.
stories are just off the wall amazing. You gotta listen to Scott Appleton's story, his MacGyver story of, well, not crushing Rush with the
The
lighting,
lighting rig and
Oh,
just
using a
we
mini line mixer and a whole bunch of other things. It's the wildest story I
and,
think I've ever
and
heard.
who was it who gave themselves an abdominal wound
Oh, that
in
was Aiden.
Bulgaria?
You know what? We haven't published his yet, but yeah,
Oh,
what was
oh,
he working on where
spoilers.
yeah. What was he working on where he stabbed himself on accident?
He got a last minute request to basically he had to kind of like chisel out a guitar to put in a pickup like on the road in a hotel room in like
In
Bulgaria or
Bulgaria?
something, or Romania or some
Romania,
Eastern
yeah.
European. Anyway, so basically slipped and like ended up like putting a hole in himself and having to go to a hospital. So yeah, so we like stories here. So if
We're
you come up
we're
with
starting
any,
to collect
we'll get
quite
you
a
back
few.
here.
Yeah,
Yes,
I like the amp
it's
story. I like the,
oh,
flying 5 feet back.
yeah. I was.
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm so glad it, it wasn't worse. But like I said, the best part of it was just Steve running over, like, "What had happened to you?" Like, I don't know.
I
And,
have no memory of the event.
Out of
yeah,
body.
Yeah.
totally out of
Oh,
body, totally out of body. But
well, we really appreciate so much you being on here and sharing Billy's rig. I mean, yeah, Billy feels like he came out of nowhere and he's everywhere. And I just can't believe how many different genres seem to be affected by him and wanting to play with him. And just the enthusiasm and the creativity that's coming out of him is really something.
yeah, and I'd like to say that too because I always tell people I manifested this job because he came during COVID. He came on my radar. I saw a video of him, and it was that Dust in a Baggie song, and I was like, oh man, I was like, this, he's like, what a great guitar player. And as a guitar tech, you always want to work with great guitar players, like that's kind of like a bucket list thing, like, oh, I got to work with Prince, or I got to work with Roger Waters, or all these guys, or and so he kind of came on my radar. I was like, man, what a fantastic guitar player. And then it seemed like really quickly I've seen his Instagram, and he's like all these, like he's like doing arenas now, and he's in amphitheaters. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And I told somebody, I was like, I'd love to work with somebody like him. And actually, my brother-in-law had come to my house, and we were watching videos on like YouTube on the TV, and like, we saw Molly Tuttle, and then there was a Molly Tuttle Billy thing. I'm like, oh, this is that Billy guy, man. I'd love to work with this guy. And then shortly after that, because I did a lot of work with Rancid, and Tim Armstrong from Rancid was doing these podcasts at his studio, and he had said, "Oh, I just had Molly here. I'm going to try to get this Billy Strings guy." And I go, "Oh, I'd love to see that if he comes. I really would love to work with this guy." And so coming out of the Mellencamp thing, I was supposed to go back and split my year between Rancid and Mastodon. I was going to go between the two, and a friend of mine had put something up that Billy was looking for a tech, and I was like, "Wait, what?" So I hit my friend up, and he's like, "Dude, would you want to do that?" And I go, "I'd drop everything for that." And so that's what happened. And it was really kind of seamless how it worked. Like I got myself replaced on all my other gigs. I bought out my airfare of people who already bought airfare for me. I did everything right. I made sure everything was buttoned up, and then off to the races. But yeah, I just kept putting it out there that I really wanted to work with him, and it kind of worked out. So
Oh, that's
That's cool.
awesome.
yeah.
Anything more you want to say before we end the stream here?
No, I can't think of anything else. Yeah, but I love this. Thanks for having me. And if anybody that watches this, because I know you're going to post it later, if you're looking for end all be all of a MIDI switching device for your effects, I can't say enough about the Mastermind. I love it. Like I said, I've really only been working with it for about 8 months now, and it's been a lot of fun, and fairly easy for me to get involved with it. And I'm kind of anxious to see how far we can push it.
Well, thank
Cool. Yeah.
you.
Well, I really look forward to it too, to hear it. And, like I said, have any ideas, just let us know. Keep us informed of your plans as your rig evolves for sure.
For sure, man. I will. Absolutely. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Thank you.